Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. My name is Tom.
And I'm Jacob.
And Christmas just passed us by, so Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy New Year in just a couple of days. It's the 30th of December here. We've got one more day left of 2021, so we all have to get used to saying 2022 in just a couple of days. But there is a Christmas tradition or a seasonal tradition that I wasn't familiar with. My family is not particularly religious, but I guess there's something called the king cake. What the heck is that, Jacob?
Well, I didn't know about this either, so I was very interested to learn about it reading this article, and it's always interesting to learn about different Christmas and holiday traditions in different countries around the world. Especially around Christmas, you learn about how I think it's in Spain or something, do they eat grapes? Like a certain number of grapes? And then in other countries, they might take a plate and smash it in front of your door on either Christmas or on New Year. So there are these very interesting Christmas and holiday traditions that we are going to learn about. And one of them is this king cake.
King cake, indeed. And, of course, lots of people like to eat cake at birthday parties. Happy birthday to you. Oh, that's a copyrighted song. I guess I can't sing that. But in any case, yes, cakes are common at birthday parties and, of course, as a dessert. But we've got this king cake that has to do with Epiphany, which again is part of the celebration of Christmas and the birth of Jesus Christ. And if you are a Christian, of course, this could be a very important holiday for you and an important treat for you. So let's find out what this is all about. Let's read the entire contents of our lesson now one time. For many, the Christmas season is a time to feast on sweet, rich food. Devoted Christians and people in areas with a history of Christianity have one final sweet seasonal treat on January 6th. This holy day, Epiphany, celebrates the kings who brought gifts to the young Jesus. The dessert for this day, called a king cake, often hides a small object that grants its finder the title of king or queen of the party. The decoration and flavor of king cakes found in the U.S. are primarily influenced by the Spanish-style king cakes of Latin America. They're usually ring-shaped, reminders of kingly crowns. In New Orleans, the cakes are used to celebrate not only Epiphany, but also the approach of Easter. These cakes are made of sweet dough, which yields something more like bread or cinnamon rolls than cakes. The texture might be light, but the cakes are dense with tremendous flavors, which can often be attributed to fruity syrups. If you buy a king cake from a bakery, it will be accompanied by a paper crown and a trinket, most commonly a plastic baby. Once the cake is at the party, the host can conceal the trinket, some bakers substitute a bean or ring for the plastic infant, inside the cake for one lucky guest to find. The person who finds the baby is made the ruler of the party. They are sometimes given the power to command guests to do silly things. Alternatively, they might be given the responsibility of hosting the party next year. One thing is certain, their luck in finding the cake's surprise is sure to bring them good fortune all year.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're talking about king cake and this Christmas tradition. So king cake, enjoying king cake for a chance to rule the party. Okay, let's jump right in. For many, the Christmas season is a time to feast on sweet, rich food. Right, that's the thing about holidays. Here in Taiwan, of course, around Lunar New Year, everyone likes to eat a lot of delicious food, and you might find that you might gain a little bit of weight during the holidays, and that's the same for the Christmas season back home for us. We would eat a lot of great, delicious food, and you might gain a little bit of weight. It's a time to feast on sweet, rich food. Now, feast here we know as a noun, right? So a big feast, that would be a noun, but feast can also be a verb. To feast on something means to eat a lot of something. So at Christmas, you might feast on things like ham and turkey and stuff like that. At Mid-Autumn Festival here in Taiwan, you might feast on barbecue. That's a very popular thing to eat on that holiday. So to feast on something means to eat a lot of something.
Yep, and we use the preposition on here to feast on the food. You can dine on food, exactly, similarly. So here we're feasting on sweet, rich food. And of course, rich means it's very sweet, but it also has a fine texture to it, and it's high in carbohydrates. So you don't want to eat too many sweet and rich foods during the holidays, or you'll, as Jacob said, gain a lot of weight. But here we've got devoted Christians and people in areas with a history of Christianity. They have one final sweet seasonal treat on January 6th, and that's the last day you can celebrate the Christmas holiday season. So you have one last chance to make yourself fatter. And of course, you could be a devoted Christian. We could also call a person who is very religious as devout. You could be a devout Christian or a devoted Christian. It's very much part of your life. You go to church quite often. You pray every day. You get together with other Christians and have Bible study sessions and stuff like that. So indeed, you might be a devoted Christian. But even if you aren't a devoted Christian, you can still enjoy this. You could live in areas that have a history of Christianity. Like myself, I'm not particularly religious, but I do come from a country that is religious. So yes, indeed, these traditions are still there, and we still enjoy them.
That's right. So this occurs on January 6th. This holy day, Epiphany, celebrates the kings who brought gifts to the young Jesus. Now, I'm also not very religious, but I think I know this story. There are 3 kings, and they travel across the desert to meet the baby Jesus, right? And they have things like spices, and I think frankincense is one of the gifts and things, and they're 3 kings. Okay, and so they had to travel across the desert to bring these gifts to the baby Jesus. The dessert for this day, called a king cake, often hides a small object that grants its finder the title of king or queen of the party. So, like the kings were bringing gifts to the young Jesus, the dessert, you might think of, it also has a little gift inside. Okay, so the dessert is called king cake, and it often hides a small object or a gift, and it grants its finder. To grant something is to allow something, to kind of give a special thing to someone. So the object grants its finder the title of king or queen of the party. So if you are the person who finds this small object, guess what? You're the most popular person, or you're the king or the queen of the party.
Right, so you will rule the party, and in the title, of course, we've got the verb to rule, which means to be in command of something. You're the boss. You might rule a country, for example, if you're a dictator or a king or something like that. And in this case, you'll be the king or queen of the party. So, of course, you'll be able to do lots of fun stuff if you find that thing hidden in the cake. I'm not quite sure how they hide it in the cake, if they dig a hole and put it in there and then cover it up, or if they bake the item in the cake when it's baking in the oven. You'd have to look up the recipe to see how that's done. But let's move on now to the next paragraph here. It says, the decoration and flavor of king cakes found in the U.S. are primarily influenced by the Spanish-style king cakes of Latin America. So if you're familiar with the United States, you know that there is a lot of influence from Mexico and other Latin American countries. So indeed, if you're in the U.S., you'll probably have the chance to enjoy a king cake, thanks to the Spanish-style king cakes of Latin America, again, that came up from Central America and South America.
That's right. So let's talk more about these cakes. They are usually ring-shaped, reminders of kingly crowns. Okay, so again, it's called king cake. So you think about it, the king, what do we think of when we hear the word king? Well, we might see someone sitting on a throne. Okay, and what do they have on their head? Well, they have a crown. That's the kind of the thing that they wear on their head. It says, or it means that they are the ruler, they're important. Okay, they have a crown on their head. So they are usually ring-shaped reminders. Now, a reminder, is something that makes you think about or remember something else. So say you have something you need for school. You might write a little note to yourself. So when you wake up in the morning, you'll see the note, and the note is a reminder that you might have to say, oh, bring your gym clothes to school, because if you forget them, then you won't be able to have gym class or something like that. So a reminder is something that causes us to remember or to think about something. And so here we have these cakes are ring-shaped. They're shaped like a circle, and this makes us remember or gives us a reminder of the crowns that kings wear.
Right, and I believe Jesus is sometimes referred to as the King of the Jews, so that's what this possibly is referring to here. He's the king, Christ the king, so of course the king will wear a crown, and indeed the cakes are shaped like a crown. They're round, so of course they're reminders of those kingly crowns, the crowns that kings wear. And in New Orleans, the cakes are used to celebrate not only Epiphany, but also the approach of Easter. So in the southern United States, we've got the city of New Orleans in Louisiana, the birthplace of jazz, and there they celebrate things a little differently with a little bit more style. And the cakes there are used to celebrate a couple of things, not only Epiphany on January 6th, but also the approach of Easter. And Easter, of course, is in the spring, and Easter celebrates when Jesus rose from the dead and became our Savior. And, of course, we'll talk about Easter later on in 2022, but right now we're going to take a break, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。哎呀，已经是到了年尾的时候啦，不知道之前这个耶诞节大家是不是跟朋友去吃了很多这个耶诞节的丰盛的食物呢？其实啊，在1月6号啊，我们还可以再吃一个季节性的点心。这个1月6号呢，就是一个很神圣的日子，叫做Epiphany， 就是主显节。而且在这一天呢，即便我们耶诞节已经吃了很多大餐之后，我们还是可以吃一个甜点。所以我们今天来介绍一个这个所谓的国王派。好，因为对很多人来说呢，当然我们吃完了这个耶诞的大餐之后呢，其实对于基督徒来说啊，1月6号还是可以再享用一个 treat。那我们刚刚说的主显节出现在第一段的第3句的地方Epiphany， 不过这一句呢还有限定用法的关系子句哦。那主显节是干嘛呢？它其实是用来庆祝为年轻耶稣带来礼物的国王。好，先行词就是国王 the kings， 关系子句从 who 到句尾的地方。那么这样子的甜点呢，我们刚刚说国王派嘛，这个国王派啊里面会藏着一个小东西，这个小东西呢可以赋予发现这个小东西的派对国王或者是王后的一个称号哦。好，那么到底国王派长什么样子啊？如果说我们看到美国的国王派的话呢，美国国王派它的装饰跟风味则主要受到拉丁美洲、西班牙风格的这种国王派的影响。我们接着就看第2段的第1句咯。第1句啊，其实看到一个关系子句的简化，先行词是 the decoration and flavor of king cakes，后面 found in the US 这4个字可以左右括号起来，省略的是 which 或 that 跟 be 动词的 are。 当然 found 不是发现啦，而是存在，就是你可以看得到找得到，也就是在美国所看到的国王派的这些装饰啊或者是风味啊，是受到这个西班牙风味拉美的影响，而且形状通常都是环形的 ring shaped，就会让人家想起国王的皇冠。比如说在 New Orleans， 这些国王派呢，不仅会用来庆祝主显节，也会用来庆祝复活节的来临哦。
We're going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. We're going to continue talking about king cakes. which are round-shaped like a crown. And, of course, they do have to do with the Christmas season. They celebrate Epiphany, which, again, celebrates the kings who brought gifts to the young Jesus after he was born. So, again, this is part of the Christmas celebration if you're Christian or if you live in a Christian country. And, again, king cakes in the United States are mostly influenced by the Spanish-style king cakes that came from Latin America. Now, let's talk about these cakes. They are made of sweet dough, which yields something more like bread or cinnamon rolls than cakes. So, if you talk about the contents of something, the things you need to build something, you say it is made of that thing, or they are made of that thing. So, cakes are made of sweet dough. We use sweet dough to make those cakes.
Okay. And this sweet dough yields something more like bread or cinnamon rolls than cakes. To yield something is to produce or provide as a result of time, effort, or work. Okay, so what you have is the dough, and what do you do with the dough? Well, you have to bake the dough. And so when you bake the dough and you put it in the oven and you bake it and it comes out, you'll find that it yields or it produces something more like bread. Okay, so it's not really a cake per se that you would buy at a bakery, something that you might get at a bakery here, but it's more like bread or cinnamon rolls than cakes.
But we're talking about the consistency of the cake. If something's really soft, then it's like a birthday cake or something like that. But a cinnamon roll or maybe bread has a thicker kind of consistency. The dough or the bread itself is a little harder than cakes are, which still can be eaten. We're referring, of course, to the texture there. So you've got the texture of cake, but these king cakes have more of the texture of bread or of cinnamon rolls, and they're not so much like actual cake. So it's not going to be very soft. It's going to be a little harder, but still tasty. And again, the sweet dough that we use yields something more like bread than cinnamon rolls. Back to that word yield, I've got an example sentence here. I could say that the rice fields of Chishang yields some of the best rice in Taiwan.
That's true. I love that rice. Okay. So the texture might be light, but the cakes are dense with tremendous flavors. If something is dense, it's very heavy, right? Tom talked about how a cake might be light and fluffy, but these rolls or this bread that comes out from the dough, it's denser, it's heavier, it's thicker, you might say. And it has tremendous flavors. Tremendous is a great adjective. It just means amazing, wonderful, super. Something really great is tremendous. Okay, and this can be often attributed to fruity syrups. To attribute something to something else means that this is why, this is because of something. Okay, so if you have this taste, this tremendous flavor, why do we have this tremendous flavor? Well, it's because of fruity syrups. So you can attribute the flavor to fruity syrups that people will add to these cakes.
And syrup is kind of like a thick sauce. I can think of maple syrup, for example. If you have pancakes or waffles or something like that, you can put maple syrup on your pancakes, and they're oh so tasty. Of course, a lot of times they're sweet. And, of course, we don't just have maple syrup. We've got, apple syrup, strawberry syrup, grape syrup, I guess, blueberry syrup. There are all sorts of different fruit syrups that you can put on bread or pancakes and stuff like that. And, of course, you're going to have these fruity syrups in these king cakes. And again, the flavors can be attributed to those fruity syrups. So to attribute means they are responsible for that thing. If you have these fruity syrups, then you're going to have these tremendous flavors as a result.
If you buy a king cake from a bakery, it will be accompanied by a paper crown and a trinket, most commonly a plastic baby. Okay, so we talk about buying these cakes, and it will be accompanied by, it will come with, it will include a paper crown and a trinket. A trinket is just a little thing. Maybe when you see students, sometimes you look at their backpacks and they might have a small thing hanging off their backpack. It could be a picture of someone or a small toy or a stuffed animal. You might think of this as a trinket.
Indeed, a trinket, again, it's kind of made like a souvenir or something, but it's generally not very valuable. And, of course, the trinket in the cake will most commonly be a plastic baby. And I suppose if you were a Buddhist, you could substitute a reclining Buddha or something like that. That would be pretty cool. Now, once the cake is at the party, the host can conceal the trinket. Some bakers substitute a bean or a ring for the plastic infant. You can conceal the trinket inside the cake for one lucky guest to find. So, of course, you're the host. You're the one who has prepared the bread. And, of course, you can put that trinket somewhere inside the cake. You can hide it somewhere inside there. Or you could substitute a bean or a ring. Okay, so a ring, of course, is something that goes on your finger. A bean, of course, is like that big sculpture in Chicago, the bean or whatever. I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but there are all sorts of beans, kidney beans, lima beans, etc.
Okay, our last paragraph. The person who finds the baby is made the ruler of the party. So it sounds to me like this is a game almost that you would play at the party with the king cake. Okay, so you can enjoy the cake, that's one thing, but then you also are trying to find the gift, the trinket that's hidden inside the plastic baby or the ring or the bean. So it's like a game. The person who finds the baby is made the ruler or the king of the party. They are sometimes given the power to command guests to do silly things. Right. What does a king do? Well, a king rules over his people, or a queen rules over her people. So the idea here is that the king of the party rules over the guests of the party. They can command guests to do silly things like, sing a song or, jump up and down on one foot, something like that.
That's right. And, of course, I'm imagining that the baker will bake this trinket or the plastic baby inside the cake, and then all the guests will get a slice of that cake, and the person who has the baby in their slice of the cake then can be the ruler of the party. But that's just my imagination because I've never actually attended one of these parties before. But again, if you are the king or the queen or the ruler of the party, you are given the power to command guests to do silly things. And alternatively, they might be given the responsibility of hosting the party next year. So alternatively means it's another choice, it's another option that you might have, it's another possibility. So yes, you might have the power to command the guests to do silly things, and you also might be given the responsibility of hosting the party next year. It might be your responsibility to make the arrangements for this party, to provide the cake, etc.
Right. That sounds almost like a punishment. Yeah. I mean, people like hosting parties, but at the same time, if you then find the baby or the ring inside the cake, you might think, oh no, now I have to do all the work next year. But if it's for the holidays, people will like hosting parties and inviting their friends and family members over. So again, this could be a very good thing. It could be an honor to host the party the following year. One thing is certain, their luck in finding the cake's surprise is sure to bring them good fortune all year. Right, so you could think about it like this also, is that you find the little baby or you find the ring inside. That means that you're lucky. You're lucky to find it. And hopefully for the rest of the year, or for the this is January 6th, right? Yeah, so for the rest of the year, you will have good luck.
Indeed. So again, this is a tradition in some countries, in some Christian communities around the world. And again, Jacob and myself mentioned that we're not particularly religious, but still these things are kind of fun to participate in. And so I wouldn't mind trying this. And of course, today is December 30th, so we still got a couple of days to maybe organize a kind of party for a king cake.
Sure. Do you want to host it?
I would, but I don't have an oven big enough to bake this kind of cake, and I don't know if any bakeries offer that sort of recipe or service. So maybe you've got some ideas on that?
I don't know. We'll talk about it maybe when we finish at the break.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today, and we're now going to turn things over to our Chinese teacher.
那么这些国王派到底是怎么做的？其实是由甜面团制成的。在第二段的第4句，我们看到甜面团 sweet dough 之后打了一个逗点，刚好就有一个补充性的关系子句。逗点之后的which一直到句尾可以左右挂号起来，这which当然指的就是甜面团。甜面团呢，它就会产生出相较于蛋糕来说呢，比较像面包或肉桂卷这种东西的一种口感跟味道。 好，那么这样子的一个 texture， 这种质地呢是非常轻盈的，而且重点是那种风味真的很棒。为什么会有这个风味呢？因为里面有这种水果糖浆。接下来在第二段同样第5句的地方，也有一个非限定用法的关系子句，先行词是 tremendous flavors， 这样子绝佳的风味如何呢？逗点之后汇取到句尾，有一个非限定用法关系子句，中间 be attributed to something 可以特别抓出来，后面加原因哦，中文就翻成归因于什么什么。所以这个绝佳风味呢，通常都是归因于 fruity syrups， 也就是有水果糖浆的关系。好，那么如果你真的从面包店买了一个国王派，那么国王派就会附上纸皇冠跟一个小型的装饰品，通常都会看到一个塑胶婴儿，很特别哦。如果这个派对当中呢，大家开始拿到国王派之后呢，开趴的主人就可以把这个小型的装饰品塑胶婴儿，或者是有一些糕饼师傅他会用豆子或者是戒指来作为一个取代，那么开趴的主人就可以把这个小装饰品藏在蛋糕里面，让幸运的客人找到。所以 party 呢是这样子玩的。不过最后第二段的第7句，请注意第一个单字 once 如果当副词的话，它指的是一次，do something once， 或者是每周会去公园一次，或者是每周会回去看阿公阿嬷一次， do something once。 可是 once 还有另外一个连接词的功能，其实它就有 when 的功能，它强调的是一旦当某件事情发生的时候。好，所以回归到句子，我们看到 once 后面连接的是主词 the cake， be 动词 is， 连接词的概念，一旦当蛋糕到达派对的时候，就开始玩游戏咯。那么找到婴儿的人，或者找到这个豆子或戒指的人，就可以成为 party 的主导者。最后一段第3段的第1句，我们看到有一个限定用法的关系子句，先行词是 the person， 后面从 who 到 baby 的地方可以左右括号起来，找到 baby 的人就可以当 party 的 ruler 哦。那他们可以做什么呢？可以叫客人去做一些傻事，比如说亲别人或者是什么做青蛙跳啦，可以有这样子的一个 power。或者呢，他们也可以被给予举办明年派对的责任哦。但是不管你怎么玩如果你真的在吃国王派的时候找到这个小装饰品，其实应该是可以幸运一整年哦。以上是我们今天对于1月6号主显节的介绍。那么希望大家一整年都非常幸运，来年也非常健康平安。我是安娜，我们明年见咯。
That is it for today, everybody. We wish you the happiest of holiday seasons. Hope you had a great Christmas, and hopefully you're going to have a prosperous New Year. And if you choose to do so, enjoy your celebration of the King Cake on Epiphany on January 6th. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Jacob.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.